You have just landed your first data analyst job. Company XYZ in recent times has received a lot of employee resignations, otherwise known as employee attrition. It is of great concern to management because they are losing experienced employees and it is affecting productivity. So you have been contracted to tell stories from the data they have collected to help discover a pattern, to understand why employees are resigning. The data I'll be using is an extract from Kaggle.com. Please note that the original source data has been modified. A big thumbs up to Kaggle.com for making this record available. So at your leisure, please visit Kaggle.com, one of the biggest storehouse of data that you can use for analysis. I always recommend the 90/10 rule, which states that 90% should be done on the drawing board, while 10% should be spent utilizing the understanding you've gotten from the 90%. So 90% outside the studio, 10% in the data analysis studio. So let's get an understanding of what this job entails. These are an extract, some few columns extracted from the data source. Now these are the columns found in the data. We want to see the understanding we can get from these columns. Now the data comprises of both employees that have left the system, that is employees that have resigned, and those that are still in the system. We have the age column that shows you the employee age. Perhaps you might want to consider age bracket to see the age bracket of employees that have the highest attrition rate. We have the column called attrition that tells if an employee is still in the system or has resigned. So if you see yes, that means the person have left the system. If you see no, the person is still an employee. We have the business travel column that tells how often an employee travel. You may have content such as rarely, frequently, or none. We have the department that tells the employee department. Perhaps you might want to consider to see which department have the highest attrition rates. We have distance from home, where you tell what's the distance of the employee from his place of work to his home. We have the gender column, male or female, where you can tell which gender have the highest attrition rates. We also have columns like job involvement, the job level, the job role, and then the job satisfaction too, that tells how satisfied an employee is. 1 is satisfied, 2 is very satisfied, 3 is dissatisfied, and 4 is very dissatisfied. We have other columns such as marital status that tell if an employee is married, is divorced, or is single. Perhaps you might want to check the attrition rate across this marital status. Monthly income can also be a factor, so you can group the monthly income into ranges or brackets, and then you can tell which of the brackets have the highest attrition rates. Does the employee work overtime? You might also want to consider that. If you see yes in the column, that means the employee works overtime. If you see no, the employee doesn't work overtime. Perhaps you might want to put that into consideration to check if employee who work overtime have the highest attrition or not. Then we have the percentage hike in salary. We also have the performance rating. Perhaps you might also want to consider that in your analysis. We also have other columns such as total working years to check the number of years the person have worked. His total working years, both before joining the company and after joining it. Perhaps you just want to put that into perspective. We have years at company. This is the actual years the person have worked in the company. You might also want to consider that. We also have status of leaving, where the employee specifically states the reason why he is leaving, perhaps because of salary or departmental head, or perhaps work accident. We also have columns such as the mode of work, where you want to know the mode of work of the employee. We have work from home, or he's physically present in the office. Then we have column, the leave column, that tells the number of leaves the employee have applied for, or perhaps the number of leave that was granted. We have absenteeism. You might also want to consider that. We also have source of hire, working, job portal, or by a recruiter. You also want to put that into consideration. So these are the columns found in the data we will be working with. At the end of the day, we may have something of this nature, a visualization of this nature that shows visually, what we have done. This can be presented to stakeholders. They can easily understand this. For example, we see that we have a total employees of 1,470, out of which 237 have left the system. We have a 16% attrition rate. 63% of the 237 persons that have left are males, 37 are females. The average attrition rate is 34. Average service year is 5.13. And then we have a graph that can also tell a lot of stories. So this is a sample of what we will be working with. As you can see, we have lots on our hand. In the next session, we'll start our analysis by first bringing the data we want to analyze into Power BI. So see you in the next session as we start our actual analysis.